It hasn't been easy for Samsung these last few years. Neither the S5 nor the S6 were tremendous hits, and the Note 7 almost managed to ruin the success of the S7 line. Not to mention the numerous low-cost manufacturers from China who managed to make life for Samsung all the more stressful. But we have to give it to Samsung, it didn't bend under all that pressure. Instead, it toughened up, went back to work, and here it is with its latest and greatest invention, the Galaxy S8 flagship smartphone. Behold the Galaxy S8, which is once again water-resistant and which arrives with a stark new look thanks to extremely reduced bezel space and an extra tall display. In the best Samsung traditions, there is an elegantly curved screen as well as a diverse set of beautiful new color options. The Galaxy S8 is a real eye-catcher, but equally great is the in-hand feel, which is extremely smooth and seamless. It gets fingerprints, but the grip is perfect. There is no longer a dedicated home button, it's been replaced by an on-screen one, but you can still use it to wake the display up, thanks to the pressure-sensitive sensor in the home button area beneath the screen. Just press firmly on it and the screen will light up. Unfortunately, this pressure-sensitive pad doesn't serve any other useful purpose beyond this. The unusual new screen is very interesting. The phone itself has relatively compact dimensions, all the while being equipped with an impressive 5.8-inch panel. Well, there is a catch here. The new screen has an aspect ratio of 9 to 18.5, which means it's not much wider than current 9 to 16 screens, but it's considerably taller. How does this change the user experience, you may ask? It's actually a double-edged sword. This display format allows for more content to be shown on the screen, which is great, but on the other hand, if the content or the user experience aren't designed with such a screen aspect ratio in mind, it may lead to some slight issues, like having black bars around video and games, or having some UI buttons and elements positioned out of reach. And there are such instances encountered with the Galaxy S8 on a fairly consistent basis. It's a Super AMOLED panel with resolution of 1440 by 2960 pixels, resulting in an astounding pixel density. Even tiny fonts appear fine. This quality AMOLED display can get plenty bright when outdoors as well as very dim when viewed in the dark, which is great. But even slight viewing angles introduce unwanted color changes. Samsung has once again reworked its take on Android. Based on Android 7, the new Samsung UI features an interesting and unique visual style. The iconography has simplistic style with clean and likable shapes and curves. The new animated wallpapers go well with that, but they seem to slow the phone down a bit, which is why it's best to replace them with a static image. Essential applications like phone, messaging and calendar are all familiar and pleasant to use. There are some elements here though that are put towards the upper edge of the screen, making them hard to reach with such a tall aspect ratio. Along with the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, Samsung is debuting its own virtual butler, Bigsby. Its ultimate goal is to be a successful Google Assistant replacement, but at this time it's a bit half-baked. For example, Bigsby doesn't support voice commands at launch. Those will temporarily be handled by Google Assistant. Bigsby does have an interesting feature called Vision. It's best described as a smart camera, which can give you shopping links, read QR codes, carry out image searches, or recognize places, depending on what you put in front of the camera lens. Right now, it's a bit of a hit-or-miss experience. Products with labels on them, such as a branded box of chocolates, for example, work well, but more generic-looking things like a black laptop or a phone, for instance, seem to be way more difficult to recognize. The leftmost home screen page on the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus is the Bigsby Homescreen. It's something like HTC Blink Feed / Google Now kind of screen, which aggregates a bunch of organizational and lifestyle features such as alarms, calendar appointments, reminders, latest news, frequently visited web pages, and more. It's a nice little feature that fits the overall concept of a virtual assistant. In the US, the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus are powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 835, while in most other markets it will be Samsung's own Exynos 8895 chipset doing the computing. Both system-on-chips are extremely powerful and built on the state-of-the-art 10nm process, the main benefit of which is higher power efficiency. Performance should be almost identical between both variants. The Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus are generally very quick. No significant hiccups with regards to performance are observed, only the occasional stutter. However, while 3D gaming is perfectly possible, the frames per second in some of the more intensive titles just don't reach the comfortable 60 FPS, which is a shame. Internal storage space is quite generous at 64 GB, and there is also a microSD card slot if you need even more. This year, Samsung isn't increasing or decreasing the megapixels in the main camera of the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus. Instead, it's worked to enhance the image processing. The single rear shooter is a 12 megapixel unit with aperture of f1.7. Pictures coming from the S8 and S8 Plus are fantastic. Detail levels are superb, dynamics are great, and colors are mostly realistic. Very rarely there would be a slight white balance issue, but in more than 95% of the time colors are very pleasing. Unfortunately, there is still some over-sharpening going on, which may be somewhat annoying when you're photographing stuff with very fine details like trees or running water, for example. Low-light photography is once again at the highest level imaginable, with preserved details and authentic colors. Video recording quality exhibits the same characteristics as the photos, good detail level and good colors, but there's quite a bit of over-sharpening going on, which may be irritating in certain situations. Galaxy S8 comes with a sizable display, however, most of the video watching will be happening in the YouTube application, and aside from some movie trailers, most other content there is in 16:9 aspect ratio. This means that you either get black bars on the sides, or you lose some content up and down if you use the crop to fill function. The phone also supports HDR video playback, by the way, for improved dynamics and more vibrant colors, but sadly at this point such content is extremely hard to come by. The loudspeaker of the new Galaxy is very powerful and quite substantial for a phone speaker. Samsung is also making a big deal out of the included AKG earphones. If you manage to push them real hard into your ears and make them stay there, which I could not, their sound is indeed pretty good. A reasonable 3000 mAh battery is powering the Galaxy S8. The phone holds up quite well, although standby times don't seem to be superb, which is probably due to the always-on display feature, which isn't that useful anyway, so it can simply be turned off. The battery promises beautiful things, such as 16 hours of continuous video playback or the cool 67 hours of music playback. Web browsing or Wi-Fi should last for up to 14 hours. These numbers are actually similar and even slightly better than those of the iPhone 7. Galaxy S8 did very well on our battery test, lasting for 8 hours and 22 minutes, surpassing strong competition like the Google Pixel, the iPhone 7 and the LG G6. Galaxy S8 is a beautiful and powerful smartphone. In fact, I would say that it's the best Android smartphone for most users out there. Not so much because of the thin bezels or extra tall display, but because of its elegance, user-friendly interface and no-compromise nature. Thank you for watching this PhoneArena review. If you liked it and found it useful, please like and subscribe, and if you'd like to read our even more in-depth Galaxy S8 review, you can find the link in the description.